Let's start with the things that LSU cannot do going into Vandy, or they're going to lose the game. Guys, listen, this is in no specific order. It's just what comes to my mind about what I see. You're going into Vanderbilt this week, and you have a massive challenge on your hands. Blake, it's Vanderbilt. This isn't your grandmammy's Vanderbilt. Clark Lee has done a really good job at rebuilding Vanderbilt with a tough, older, experienced team, especially up front in the trenches. They got some really good playmakers. They got some good playmakers at linebacker. They got a really good playmaker at tight end with Eli Stowers. There's a lot of things that Vanderbilt does very, very well. Because there's never been a time in the last 2 decades outside of Clark Lee, maybe James Franklin, but even then, that they've been top 20 in run defense. Guys, last year they were top 30 in the country in run defense. They are very good and very physical up front. That's the difference that Vanderbilt presents to you. When I look at them and I say, everybody looks at like Eli Stowers and they look at Pavia Magic and they say to themselves, oh man, if Deigo Pavia has led that team. No, Deigo Pavia is getting the rewards of the success that Vandy's had. And even though last year they were 6-6, that's neither here nor there. The truth of the matter is what they've done up front defensively, especially how they've gotten after quarterbacks in some extents, especially a couple of weeks ago when they got after Ty Simpson a couple of times here. When I look at this week and the things that you got to avoid, guys, it's the same thing that I've been preaching the last 2 years. You can't go in here and turn the ball over. You got to make good decisions. I'm not spending much time on this because we talked about it ad nauseum over the last 4 days. You can't go into Vanderbilt. You can't go into Nashville and turn the ball over. It is a bottom line because this is why it's so critical this week more than most. This team will time of possession your ass. They will keep the ball away from you. They are second in the country in time of possession. They're second in the country in third down offensive efficiency. They will keep the ball away from you because they will go 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then you are sitting there, and it's 3rd and 2, and they run a simple dive play, and you made a good play on it, and you stopped them, but they got 2 yards, and then you pick up the change, and you move the change, and it's another first down. You can't give them more possessions than what they're already going to get. Guys, the simple truth here is if you told me going into this game that Garrett Nussmeier would be better than last week and what he's been for most of his career with the decision-making, and if you told me that he would even limit himself to 1 interception, I would actually feel a lot better about where you sit. But because of the decision-making of last week, the decision-making a couple of weeks ago, the decision-making and the bad interception versus Florida, guys, it limits me about what LSU can do. And a lot of you tonight have asked about, well, why is the point spread the way that it is? It's because it's because sportsbooks don't trust that you can score more than 20 points, and they don't trust that you're not going to turn the ball over. That is as simple as that. Guys, the old adage at football, like when you look at teams, and maybe when you look at games, not teams, when you look at games and you look at a box score, maybe it's a game that you didn't watch and you're like, how in the hell did this happen? And you go down and you're like, no, well, they dominated here. They dominated the running game. They dominated throwing the football around. They weren't bad on 3rd down. How in the hell did they lose? And you go and look at turnovers. Guys, the only reason that you did not blow that team out last week is simple. It's one thing. You turned the ball over too much. You couldn't convert in the red zone because you're turning the ball over. You're making bad decisions. The plays aren't working to the effectiveness that it needs to work on. Guys, the bottom line is don't throw interceptions. Don't fumble the football at the 1-yard line. It is simple. As chaotic as it's been, it also is very simple. Do not fumble the football. Do not throw interceptions. And I think it'll be just fine. Decision-making's got to get better. I've heard Brian Kelly this week talk about telling Garrett Nussmeier he's got to get his swagger back. No. Let's define swagger. Swagger is making the right read and the right throw and not turning the ball over. Swagger is not trying to thread the needle and getting picked and losing a football game. Swagger is making the right read and the right throw and doing things like Joe Burrow in 19 where he's throwing the ball and the ball's in the air and he's running off the field because he knows it's a touchdown before the ball gets to Terrace Marshall. That's swagger. That's preparation. You have swagger in preparation. You have confidence in preparation. Confidence comes from a quarterback when you're more prepared than the other guy or the defense or the other guys in front of you. Will you be this week? Because your decision-making's got to get better. Another thing, you got to avoid the amount of touches that Eli Stowers at tight end gets. Because you have an ultimate weapon yourself in Trey'Dez Green at tight end. You can say this is being a homer. You can say whatever you want. I think the best tight end in the SEC is easily Trey'Dez Green. Eli Stowers is up there with him. I don't think he's Trey'Dez. I don't think that they're in the same tier, but he's a really good player. When Alabama limited Eli Stowers and bracketed him in the second half, and Deigo Pavia had to throw the football, and they took his favorite weapon away, went a lot of positions, and in those possessions, there wasn't a lot of places for him to go. He kind of got a little bit skittish of throwing the football, and when he did throw it to other places, he was late because he had to go through more reads than outside of Eli Stowers, and he threw balls into bad situations, and he got picked. He had turnovers. Guys, I'm taking Eli Stowers away from him in the first half and seeing what he does. Now, there are going to be other things coming out of a bye week that I think that they're going to hit you with, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. You cannot let Eli Stowers get going on you. Because one thing about Deigo Pavia, and I've been tough and critical on him this week, and I've been tough and critical on him in his career, meaning his Vandy career. One thing you got to give him is the connection between him and Eli Stowers is a really good one. He trusts him a lot, and you got to limit the touches that he gets. I don't mind you limiting the targets. Let him throw the football, but you got to be in right position. Now, Whit Weeks being questionable this week, we'll find out as we're talking about this live right now. We're talking about this if you're watching the segment. I don't know the status of Whit Weeks. We'll find that out. So many things can change in what I'm about to just say. But West Weeks, Keys, they're going to have to really game plan around how they're going to bracket this. I'm glad this happened in the beginning, more beginning of the week, middle of the week than it did Whit Weeks being questionable at the end of the week. Next man up mentality. But Devon Keys is going to have a massive week because Eli Stowers is his go-to weapon and his number one weapon at that. I look at this saying, too, defensively, and the last thing defensively that you just cannot get away from. I think Deigo Pavia has been god-awful when he's been put under immense pressure at throwing the football. Now, when you put immense pressure on a quarterback that can run, the worry is they get outside of that contain and they hit a big play on you. And you got to expect that to happen when you send pressure. But the pace that Vandy is going to play at is not the pace that Ole Miss plays at. So I understand the logic in thinking why Blake Baker doesn't send pressure versus Ole Miss, especially in the second half, because, our guys are already gassed. We start sending pressure, they're going to get more gas, and then we're really going to be in trouble. That's not going to be the same this week. I think that you got to put a relentless amount of pressure on Deigo Pavia and go after him full guns blazing. Because when you do, guys, the proof is in the pudding. Deigo Pavia has shown you, a lot like Garrett to some extent, has shown you what he is and who he's going to be. I know that if I send pressure and more guys than they have in the block when they're in passing downs and passing situations, the guys, quite frankly, he will make bad decisions and he will make critical decisions. And guys, there are times that he just says, F it, and throws the ball down there, not even knowing where he's throwing the football. He did it 2 weeks ago versus Bama. He did it 3 weeks ago versus Virginia, or 4 weeks ago versus Virginia Tech. He did it against South Carolina. He did it against every team that he's played this year that is a P4 team, that he got pressure under him, and he just said, screw it, I'm throwing the football, and it got picked. Now, the Alabama one, the second one for Bama, got called back for, I think it was hands to the face or something like that, but he still did it twice. Another one, he threw it out of bounds. He does not like getting hit when he is sitting back in the pocket throwing the football. He will make bad decisions. I am heating him up hotter than a crack spoon. I am sending God knows the amount of hellfire that I would rain down on this kid. He's not a kid. I mean, shit, he's a millionaire. I mean, he's making shit of 7 figures. At least it's what all the Twitter tells me. I just think that he's a horrible decision maker when you make him one-dimensional. You can't let him get the running game going, and it's something completely different. And if you want to talk about that, we can. They're going to want to get the running game going with him, and I think he can hit some runs on you. And guys, quite honestly, I think that he will get some runs on you, and you're going to have to live with it. But containing him enough, making him sit in the pocket and sending a relentless amount of pressure after him all night long is going to be key here because of the decision-making that he makes. All right, offensively, things that I think that you cannot simply get away from. Last week, I thought Joe Sloan or Alex Atkins, for that matter, or Brian Kelly, for that matter, I thought they did such a better job disguising and doing things in the run game that benefited them to a whole nother level. What I don't want to see from this team this week is last week I thought you got, and this isn't really even creative, but to you, it's creative. They got, quote unquote, creative in the run game for them. They ran a couple of powers. They ran a couple of counters. They ran split zone. They ran inside zone. They ran outside zone. So where every time that you're running the football, there was actually something different that you did. Through the first couple of games, guys, the truth of the matter was you were very one-dimensional in how you did things in the run game. Inside and outside zone. That was your run game. Then you run a power with Josh Thompson kicking out an edge and getting a really good block. You run a counter and you get a 15-yard run. You run a split zone and you get a 23-yard run. Then when you run another split zone, Juwan Johnson breaks off a 56-yard run that damn near got to the house. You got to continue to mix up things in the running game so that everybody just doesn't know what you're doing. When you run things like split zone. So what is split zone? When you have a wide, let's say you have a tight end or H-back off the line of scrimmage. You'll run a zone blocking scheme, but in the zone blocking scheme, you'll leave the last guy on the end of line scrimmage unblocked for that end guy to come and knock him out. So you actually have 5 guys to mainly block 4 or 5, and you get more of a hat on a hat, and you don't have to worry about the end, and it creates cutback lanes. Why Caden Durham was able to get a couple of cutbacks, why Juwan Johnson was able to get a cutback is because of the different things that they did in the run game. Don't get away from it. The worry I have, and this is a massive worry for me this week, the worry that I have for LSU is that you've shown me that you will do some creative things in the run game. And that, I'm not talking about the creative things of getting Xavier Thomas in the backfield and running a dive or a zone run. But you got creative in the sense, for you, this isn't creative for other offensive play callers, but that you'll run a power. You'll run a counter. And teams have to be on their heels on what they're doing. Do I think that you need to run RPOs off of this based off of the history of Garrett Nussmeier? Hell no. Hell no. To the no, no, no. Hell to the no. Hell no. I'm not running an RPO with his ass again. That's a little too harsh, but it's true. But it makes teams prepare for it. It makes teams have to be ready for it. Well, shit, man, they're running a counter here. Oh, shit, they ran an RPO slant behind it. Damn. I mean, they ran it last week, but they didn't run it a lot. You got to mix up things in the running game to get those linebackers' eyes out of position. And listen, do I think that this Vandy linebacking core is really good? Yeah, I actually think they're really freaking good. They will over-pursue. We saw in the Alabama game when Alabama ran a lot of split zone that the Alabama linebackers pursued too much and left massive amounts of cutbacks for Jam Miller, and I think that you can do that here too. Tyree Adams has got to continue to help the left guard get push. I don't know if Paul Mbinga is going to start. I would keep Cohen Eccles there for what it's worth. Cohen had some success. He had some failures, but he had a little bit more success in the run game. Get after their ass. This is not a bad front seven when it comes to run defense. But what you can't do is just run inside and outside zone. You can't just motion Xavier Thomas in the backfield and say, we're going to run a zone read here. Can't do it. We're going to run outside zone with Xavier Thomas. That's not creative. Creative is getting some of these big fellows out in space where they can get to the second level and some cutback lanes start happening. And you have some situations late in the fourth quarter like you did last week where Josh Thompson's getting pushed. I put this in the things that you cannot do. Well, Blake, why didn't you say that this is something we need to do more of? It is something that you need to do more of. But I round this out by saying, I've seen you in the run game do other things before. The toss to Juwan Johnson that against Florida got you 9 yards twice. Then you just don't run it again. It's been the Joe Sloan theme sometimes of when you have success and then you have one failure and you don't run it again. Guys, does Chris Hilton, let me give an example. Like the Chris Hilton post route. I don't give a shit that Chris Hilton dropped it. Do I care? Yes, I care. I don't give a shit in reference to that I'm not going to come back to it. Are we nuts? Are we nuts? Well, Blake, you can't catch it. Okay, fine. He didn't catch it. He got behind 2 defenders. Throw it again. Let's see if he can catch it this time. Got a better idea. Throw it to Barryon Brown and see if he can catch it. Don't go away from it. You get a little skittish when things don't work instantly. Guys, you know this if you have kids. When your kids don't have success in something instantly, sometimes they get very much down on themselves. And you got to be the one that's there to tell them, keep going. You got to practice, keep going. And I feel like I say that to Joe Sloan in the run game and just play calling in general sometimes. It doesn't matter. It got a yard. Run it again. Run it again. I put in the don't category because don't go back to what you did 3 weeks ago and be very predictable. I don't like that word, but you were. Don't be predictable about what you're doing and you'll be fine. All right. Let's get to some do's here, things that you need to do. Make Pavia one-dimensional. We talked about that a couple of times already this week. Brian Kelly talked about it. I say make him one-dimensional, but we'll talk about this a lot tomorrow. I am going man-to-man on the outside, and I'm stacking the box. It's as simple as that. I know it's not as simple as that to Blake Baker and that you got Tim Beck is a good OC and that he will scheme you up if you just do one thing over and over and over again. But generally, I'm manning them up and saying, all right, well, beat us. Beat us. I'm not letting this run game and I'm not letting this option attack. I'm not letting this creativeness that Tim Beck has. I'm not letting it beat us. If you're going to beat us, Deigo Pavia is going to throw the ball 30 times and he's going to beat us. I think if you can limit Deigo Pavia to under 40 yards rushing, you're going to beat him. You got to make him sit back in that pocket. It's not a strength of his. It's not a good strength of his. That's for damn sure. It's easy to make a guy one-dimensional if you do the right things. You did it last week. Now, again, what's the status of Whit Weeks? I don't know. We will see. But I think I have a lot of faith that you're going to be able to do it. Now, what worries me, and another thing of things that you got to be able to expect this week, what worries me about some of the things going into this Vandy game and going into our defense facing their offense, I really wonder what in the hell they're going to throw at us this week. Is there something that they haven't run or shown on film this week that they're going to run in this opening series and go up 7-0? I equate this to like what we saw last week with Missouri versus Alabama. Missouri didn't do shit against them offensively, really. I mean, they got some plays here and there, but there was a long time throughout that guys, they couldn't get anything moving offensively until Bama started shooting themselves in the foot. But they came out in that opening script in that opening drive, and they went right down there and they punched Bama in the mouth. Well, Missouri's coming off a bye week and really, really good coordinators, like Kirby Moore is, when you give him 2 weeks to prepare, he's going to dice your ass up. And I think that Tim is that. And I just wonder, can you sustain a blow early? I think you can. I think that they are more physical up front along their offensive line than anybody wants to give them credit for. But you're missing 2 guys inside. You're going to miss Bernard Gooden this week. You're potentially, I don't know if you are, but potentially you're going to miss Whit Weeks this week. Potentially. One of them you are, the other is a potential that we just don't know yet. What worries me is that this team shows you things with the lack of experience that you're going to have to refill there, and they get to you. So that is going to be an interesting chess piece inside this defensive game plan for Blake Baker. You got Gabe Rutherford out, Bernard Gooden's not going, and Whit Weeks is questionable. How good is your depth, man? And how fundamentally sound can you be? A couple other things that I need to see LSU do this year. Guys, Trey Green is a freak, but something that we're going to talk a lot about tomorrow is I think that this Vandy pass defense isn't good at all. I don't think it's – I watched them immensely. I don't think they're good at all. I do think their far boundary corners can be attacked by the talent that you have. I got to be real with you. A lot of you aren't going to like this, but it's the truth. I'm taking shots with Barryon Brown and Chris Hilton this week. I'm taking shots. I don't think they can cover you. I don't. Last week, they had a problem. South Carolina had a problem with their far left boundary, and you didn't go at it once. Why, I have no idea. What did teams do good against South Carolina? Specifically, Vanderbilt. Deigo Pavia was hitting the boundary, the far left boundary, consistently. I do think that there's safety room for Vandy's good in the run game. I think that you can expose them with Trey Green, Barryon Brown. I think you can expose them with Aaron Anderson, Kyle Parker, Chris Hilton. I know a lot of you want to turn the page on. Xavion Thomas. Guys, I think that your overall unit is better than their DB room. They can get pressure on you, and you're going to have to protect him. That's a whole different topic for a different day. Garrett's got to make better decisions. Yes. Guys, you can beat them at the boundary. They're 69th in the country in passing yards allowed as Vanderbilt. 69th. They're going to man up on you. If they're going to man up on Ryan Williams, they're going to man coverage your ass just the same. If they're not scared, if they're prideful enough that they're going to run man coverage a lot on Ryan Williams and Horton or run cover 2, and that was the main 2 things that they've run this season defensively, you got to attack the boundary. If Garrett Nussmeier is healthy, attack the boundary. Hit the shots in the cover 2, run the fade, sit in the hole in cover 2, and if they're running man, they don't have the speed that you do it outside. They don't have the physical guys, at least to me, they're not physical enough at the boundary to go up against a guy like Trey Green. They're not, and you got to keep going to 14. You got to keep going to them. It's a very interesting matchup if Aaron Anderson is probable, which he is. You get Trey Green. I think Bauer Sharp needs to be on the sideline. Bauer Sharp has got to sit on the sideline. I love him as a player. He gives you all the effort. He's not Trey Green, y'all. And you got him a lot of playing time even when Trey Green was healthy. You got to get your best playmakers to football, and those 2 guys, and Aaron Anderson and Trey Green, are that. I know that they're – listen to me. They're going to try to get Barry on the football this week, and I don't mind that at all. Attack the boundaries. If you're missing, that's a whole different conversation. Guys, we've seen them go man-to-man against Ryan Williams. What makes you think that they're not going to do that shit against yo ass? I don't mean this in a wrong way, but what makes you think that they won't? You got to have a formatted plan to be able to attack that boundary on both sides. They're not good there. Their safety room has overcome a lot of bad corner play. A lot of bad corner play. But they got some real bruisers at safety. They got a couple of, they can cover fine, and they've overcome a lot. You got enough speed that you should be able to get after their ass. I got to be real with you. As bad as this secondary for Vandy has been in moments of times, you better be able to throw this rock, and you better come out rocking. Garrett's got to make good decisions. We can say it all the live long day until we're blue in the face. But, man, it's their biggest weakness on defense. You better attack it. Don't try to outsmart the room. I feel like offensively, a lot of times we try to outsmart the room when we shouldn't. If you don't, I think you're going to come in with a win. Last but not least here. Why do I keep doing this? I still got something I need to do here. Do I want to save this for tomorrow? I think I might want to save this for. No, screw it. Actually, I just won't go into detail on it. You are much capable of more with your wide receiver room. I think Aaron Anderson could and should have a breakout game this week.